exploit their ideology, which is based in a certain interpretation of Islam, to gain power in Afghanistan and in Kabul. But I don't think, and that is the question I also pose, as you do, to myself, are we able to negotiate anything with the leadership of the organization of Taliban? That means Mullah Omar and the new leaders. I don't think so. I think we are not, they want an Islamic emirate in Afghanistan. They do not want any kind of human laws and all these things. They want to develop the ideas that they also tried to develop before 2001, but now with other means. So I think this organization, like Al-Qaeda, for instance, they are not people that, I mean, we can offer many minutes on negotiating it. But all the people that are supporting them now are able, or are, of course, people that would like to negotiate. Then the question on the regional approach. I think the big problem for the last 8-10 years has been to alienate the neighbors. And that is Pakistan, India, Russia, China, Iran. They have all been alienated, making into people that could support the war on terror, or if they don't, if they won't do that, then they would be our enemies. And this is the choice they were given, and I mean, they have not been very happy to buy into that choice. So I think the big challenge for Obama is to try to deconstruct this development for the last 8-10 years. And I think that involves sending other signals on missile defense to Russia, sending other signals to Iran on some kind of negotiation or dialogue. It also means to make a pressure on India not to have their Israeli-style fashion towards the Kashmir problem, and so on and so forth. So this is tremendous work, but I think this is needed to have a regional approach, and I think that was on his mind for the president, but now it's, I mean, we don't know what direction it will take. And lastly, you asked about Afghan Taliban after. We are supposing that Afghan Taliban will, in the end, win and have the power in Kabul. What about their relations to Al-Qaeda? I think, as we have seen now, they are in public. What they are doing clandestinely, well, we can guess about. But in public, they are going out and saying, well, we have nothing to do with you, and we will not have relations, and we will not support the global agenda, and this on. So I think if they can gain in that situation, if they can gain, they will not work together with Al-Qaeda. But that does not mean that we will have a regime in Kabul that I think we would love.
Thank you, Lars Erslev Andersen. I have seen Mr. Arne Strand asking for the floor as well.
Thank you. If we take a bit look at history, it's quite interesting that when the Taliban came to power, one of their aim was actually to throw Al-Qaeda out of Afghanistan. I was in Jalalabad when they took power there, and Al-Qaeda was fleeing in advance of their coming into the area. As I mentioned, bin Laden did not come back to the Taliban. He came back to the Rabbani government at that time, and he was also fleeing for them to Kabul. So there has been a quite difficult relationship between the two, because the Afghan Taliban, the pure ones, do see them as Wahhabis who have nothing to do in Afghanistan. And I think if we somehow can capitalize on that, and also remember another thing, which is not very much attention drawn on, in the period between the attacks in the US and the American international operations in Afghanistan, Taliban did actually convey a Loya Jirga where they asked for the permission to hand over Osama bin Laden to the international community. And they had the support in Afghanistan for doing that. So they have already taken quite a few steps in that direction. Can we then trust them in negotiations? Let's first remind ourselves that there are a lot of negotiations going on. Michael Sample, that was just quoted in the article in Foreign Affairs, did negotiate a truce with Taliban commanders in Helmand, or was it Kandahar, and was expelled afterwards because it went a bit too quickly for the international community. There have, for the last 3 years, central persons within the Taliban, not least Foreign Minister Mutawakil, have been sitting in Kabul, have negotiated terms with the Afghan governments together with other central positions within what I define as the moderate Taliban, those who resisted the influence of al-Qaeda. There were a lot of rumors in Kabul last week that Mutawakil might be added onto the list of ministers if he could have been taken off the blacklist of the US and the UN. So a lot of these things are going on. There has been a reconciliation commission for a number of years that have tried to address these things. So it's not a question about, call it kicking in open doors. There has been a process where a degree of trust has been coming in place. What is necessary, though, is in case to negotiate with the central Taliban leadership and for them to see that there is a room for political influence, possibly going away from the strong notion that you need to build a very strong central state in Afghanistan and rather accept larger degree of decentralization and control by all ethnic groups in the areas they control. Then you could have more of the traditional power-sharing arrangement in Afghanistan rather than to try to enforce a very strong state of them, which they always have tried to reject. Thank you.
And before calling the last opponent, I will give Søren Schmidt the word, please.
Thank you. Well, I have a few comments actually, but I don't know. Just on the first, on Carl Eichenberry, which you rightly say is a wise man, and indeed he recommended to Obama that he should not send more troops. And I think that would have been a wise advice to follow. Unfortunately, it was not followed. Yeah, and he is now the ambassador to Kabul. U.S. ambassador. Okay, the other issue which was mentioned, the comprehensive approach that we are doing in the north, so this, that we do civil and military activities within the same organization. I mean, Denmark participated in that, and it's utterly stupid, in fact, because the north is, or at least was until now, the situation has deteriorated. I don't know exactly what the possibilities is, but when it was possibility, we did not use that opportunity really to put comprehensive development efforts there, at least in the Danish area. Instead, we foolishly channeled all our aid through the central government, and nothing came out. Because we were caught in our development paradigms, which we have from Tanzania and other places, where you rightfully go through the government, but when there's no government functioning, you have to do other things. And it didn't come to the mind of the Minister of Foreign Affairs here. So, yeah, there are many other issues here. I think one of the big issues really is also that there are different clocks. I mean, there's an internal American clock which relates to the electorate there. How long time you can stay with that force that we have in Afghanistan, and that relates also, of course, to the support or lacking, decreasing support in European countries, and then the regional clock, which is quite different, because it might take a very long time for the Taliban or for Pakistan to sort out its deal with the tribal areas, or to sort out this Kashmir issue, or all these things are very, very complicated. It's not something that will be solved within the same time framework that is needed according to the American or European internal clock. So that's a huge problem, of course. I don't have the solution to it, but just, I mean, to this issue that how an external party can, in fact, be beneficial in a civil war by guaranteeing a deal. I mean, that's actually the background for the success story in Iraq. I mean, the last part of it, that it somehow guarantees for the Sunni Muslims to have a stake in the system, and that worked out. So, I mean, I'm not saying everything is fine in Iraq and what have you, but there are some possibilities there. Thank you.